Freedom with Steve Ryan. Fired up freedom. All right. Do you ever look for certain services or products and it's just hard to find and you want to know if someone else has used that before? Well, visit my resources page, steveryan.com/resources, steveryan.com/resources. Rocking and rolling. All right, welcome everyone. Today is Tuesday. We're talking about how do you know when and how to set boundaries. I do have some notes, but I also welcome people's input up, and if you want to share and take part in this, that'd be great too as well. So I'm just going to get started. Hey, welcome. We're here on Twitter Spaces. We're on Clubhouse. We're also on TikTok Live and some other live video platforms. On yesterday, we talked about how to create opportunities in your industry. That was a great conversation yesterday. We had some people come up and give some input. That was super awesome. That was so incredible. Now, as far as how and when to set boundaries, why is this important? Why should this even be a topic? Why should we even care about what this topic is? Well, here's my opinion on this. Setting boundaries, knowing how and when to set boundaries, that's important for your mindset. That's important for when you're working on goals. This can determine if you burn out or if you can sustain your energy to keep going forward. And welcome everyone to the room. Welcome. I did take some notes. This is going to take probably about 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'll open up the floor for anyone who wants to come up and contribute. If you're on Twitter Spaces, to send up a request. If you're on Clubhouse, just send a request. I see Fuzzy sent a request. We'll get to you just shortly. All right, so this is what I came up with. BVT. I love these little acronyms because it helps the memory brain. But be honest with yourself, value yourself, and teach yourself. And I'm going to go through each one of these. It'll be to the point. So being honest with yourself, why is this important? Because being honest with yourself, it impacts your mindset, your goal setting. It helps you to see your strengths and your weaknesses, And by knowing that, what are your trigger points? Are there certain things that trigger you? These things are important because it's hard to set boundaries if you're not sure what triggers you, if you're not sure how people or situations is impacting you. It can be very difficult to set boundaries. This is personally important to me because this has been a lifelong challenge for me. This has been something that has taken me a long time to really get to a place where I can say, okay, I'm comfortable with setting boundaries. I had to get to know myself. I had to be honest with myself about, okay, you know what? When I hear this is a trigger for me, and this upsets me. So if I don't want to be in this situation, let me not be in this situation. Or if I'm going to be in a situation that I can't avoid, that I know something is going to trigger me, then I walk into it mentally prepared. You know what I mean? I know life can be unexpected. So sometimes something may catch you off guard and you may not know, wow, how do I deal with this? It's going to take practice. It's not about trying to be perfect in life, but this is about navigating so that things aren't burning you out. So things aren't making you to the point where it's like, I can't go forward. So this whole situation of what I'm explaining in these different topics, all of these things help with mindset growth, emotional growth, self-growth. I know people love the topics when we're talking about making money and things like that. I get all that. But making money is irrelevant if your mental health isn't there. Making money is irrelevant if you're miserable. So all of these things tie in together. I live and practice this all the time. This is what I go by, So for those who just came into the live stream and into the spaces in the room, we're talking about how and when to set boundaries. And the 3 points that I'm going over is being honest with yourself, valuing yourself, and take time for yourself, like teaching yourself. And if you can see here, I wrote some notes. See this? For those who can see it on the video, like when I come into these sessions, I've been taking the time, like the day before, and organize my thoughts and think about how do I want to present this to you? How do I want to talk about this to you? And then as other people are coming up and giving their input, it opens up a wide conversation. All right. I'm actually almost done. This one is a little quicker than the others. All right. One other thing about getting to know yourself, like what I had to learn, like for example, earlier this year, some of you may know this, some of you may not, but one of my brothers was murdered earlier this year, and it's really taken a lot in me to get to a point where I'm like, I'm centered. It's not that I don't miss him. It's not that I'm not, having my moments of grieving, but I had to come to a point where I said, okay, I have two decisions to make. Either I'm going to be miserable about this and be angry, or I'm going to take the path of celebrating his life and taking the path of appreciating life. You know what I mean? And so I've had to set boundaries in terms of for myself of like, if there's anybody that comes into my energy that wants to argue or bring certain negatives to my space, I just don't want to deal with it. Like I've chosen a path in my life that I just want peace. And I had to recognize that if I wasn't honest with myself, I would not have made that decision. I don't like to handle a lot of negativity. Now, I'll deal with it when it comes. And what I do when it comes is I breathe. I take a moment. I breathe. I say, you know what? Is this really relevant? And that's my process. I'm not saying that you have to do that process, but this is my process of dealing with those things. The next thing I want to talk about is valuing yourself. All right. Valuing yourself is accepting yourself. What's your personality? I wasn't really big on learning about personalities and things until probably about 3 years ago. Where I'm not saying that these personality tests is 100% accurate, but sometimes getting to know yourself and what makes you quirk. Are you someone who needs motivation to set goals? It's important to know yourself. Like for some people, they have to do these triggers for themselves. Like if I want to hit goal A, B, and C, I'm going to have to motivate myself this way by saying, I'll give myself this if I do goal A, B, and C. Some people don't need that. But knowing yourself, that helps you to know how to value yourself. And why is this important? Because, for example, knowing when to say no. Knowing when to tell a certain situation or opportunity, you know what? No, I'll pass on that. You know what I mean? And that takes a lot to value yourself in that way. Like another thing is letting go of caring about other people's judgment. You know what I mean? Like that's one thing that I've been very good at personally. Like how other people view me and judge me, because I've been so used to being the outsider for so long in my life that I've just developed this not caring mentality. You know what I mean? I care in terms of wanting to help people, but I set a limit to where it's like, okay, if it starts to be to where people are just being judgy and they're projecting onto me, okay, I'm not going to allow that to impact me. The third thing I want to mention on this is teaching yourself. Paying attention to how you're feeling and how you're being impacted by, what people are saying or situations that you're in. These things are very important. And this is all important to setting your boundaries, and this is just me sharing my experience. I would love to hear some voices. If you're on Twitter Spaces, then, go ahead and come on up if you want. I know Fuzzy tried to come up on the Clubhouse side, so I'll go ahead and invite you up. There we go. Hey, Fuzzy, welcome. And welcome everybody on TikTok. I'll definitely say hello to you more toward the end. I'm more focused on the audio app. So if you want to talk, just go to steveryan.com/spaces and you can jump into spaces or you can jump on the Clubhouse. All right. Hey, Fuzzy, how's it going? Oh, sorry. Let me turn you up. We can't hear you. Here we go. There we go. Hey, Fuzzy.
No worries. Yeah, I'm good. I thought when I arrived, I'd come up and keep you company on the stage. Good topic.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I've got much more I can add to that, really. Just echo those kind of things. I mean, it's always, everyone needs to know their boundaries, because otherwise get drained or depleted in different ways. So, but do I probably could do better with some boundaries. I'm quite laid back about things. I do let a lot of things slide, shall we say, because I'm easygoing. But I do put the brakes on when I need to.
Absolutely. and how did you get to the point where you know when to set your brakes? You said you like to put your brakes on when you need to. How did you get to that point?
Oh well, that's probably not a calculated braking. It's not often that I'm known for being quite a laid back guy, but I can be less laid back sometimes. So I think maybe that's more of an emergency brake than a calculated braking.
I got you. So in other words, when situations or something push you into a corner and it's like, no, but when you get to that point, do you feel like energetically drained or anything? Like for something to get you to the point where it's like, I have to set this boundary for you personally, what drives you to that point? Is it just too much button pushing, or what gets you really to that point, being a laid back person?
Yeah. I think there's not these situations don't come often, but I think it would take a lot of button. It definitely would take a lot of button pushing. Or if I can recall a friendship with someone that wasn't very grounded. I mean, I'm not the most everyday grounded kind of person. I drift around as well, but I mean, this person was just like in a different realm, kind of ungrounded. So I get that friendship doesn't exist anymore. But with that, I think looking back, there was sort of like, well, can't take care of this person, they have to take care of themselves, but you care about them, but then it's like that's draining with like trying to be the rational person and like, just a bit. I don't know, I think a lot of it with me is like, if I'm friends with someone who's younger, because I've got a brother with severe autism, so he can't look after himself, he can't communicate.
Right.
And I'm the older one, so it's like I've been his carer. Obviously parents do that as well, or did do that as well. And I think whenever I meet someone who's like a bit younger, I kind of go in this like paternal kind of like older brother thing, because I didn't really have that with my actual brother. So maybe that's one thing why I kind of do that, like, oh, this person, I'll help guide you on your way kind of thing. But anyway, that's the sort of reflecting on a situation where maybe I could have had more barriers, or boundaries, I should say, rather than barriers. But
right, that makes sense. And welcome everyone. Right now we're on Twitter Spaces, we're on Clubhouse, we're on TikTok Live, we're on some other platforms. If you would like to come and contribute to the conversation, just go to steveryan.com/spaces and join one of the audio apps. We're very organized. We've been doing this for a bit now. So we'd love to hear some more voices. But this was Fuzzy just now talking. I can relate to that. Like really for me, I'm mostly easygoing for the most part. I tend to get riled up if I get into protective mode over friends or family. If I see someone doing someone else wrong or something like that, those are the type of things that get a rise out of me. But other than that, I'm similar. I'm easygoing. I don't really put much value on a lot of nonsense. but life isn't perfect. We're going to, have these unexpected situations. And just to recap, I just went over 3 points that I made about setting boundaries, how and when to set boundaries. BVT. I love these acronyms. Be honest with yourself, value yourself, teach yourself. My points today is really shorter than the other days. This is really going to be more of like if you all want to come up and participate. If not, I'll be more than happy to close up early. So, hey, how you doing, Magical Lords? Hey, BB. Hey, Prod Jen. Hey, Raining Inside. Raptorous. Hey, y'all. Send you an invite here. All right. And if anyone on the Clubhouse side want to come up, just raise your hand and I'll get you up. Hey, Brenda Emrys, Edwin Robinson, Anna, Jesse, Trevor. Hey, BB, how you doing this morning?
Hello, good morning. I'm walking again. But I didn't want to miss the train, so I listen on the way.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Yeah. Have you had to deal with setting boundaries, and how did you feel about all these quick points I went over earlier just now?
That's a bit difficult because, we need to learn first. We need to make mistakes. We need to get hurt. And after we we start setting up. That's how I did, because first you want to help everyone, you want to be there for everyone, but when you see that you lose yourself, then you start saying no to some things that is not good for you. That's how I don't know. Maybe somebody can.
No, absolutely. No, I got you. Focus on your walk, BB. Thank you though for coming up and giving that point of view. The reason why this topic is important because yes, we can talk about, like yesterday we talked about how to create opportunities in your industry. Last week we talked about creating income and all these other things. But again, just to recap, because some people just came in, you can have all these financial nuggets and what to do and all this in the world. But if your mental health isn't there, if you don't know how to deal with energy, that's going to be a problem. And that really can interfere with, are you burning out? Are you able to sustain? Because one of the ways of reaching goals and being successful, in my opinion, is learning yourself along the way to where you can learn to sustain. And that includes energetically. I know this topic may not be one of the most sexiest topics, but it's so super important. It really, really is. So 1 second here. Getting you up here, Sophia. I see your request. Hey, let me let you connect here. Fired Up Freedom will be right back after these messages. Do you ever look for certain services or products and it's just hard to find and you want to know if someone else has used that before? Well, visit my resources page, steveryan.com/resources, steveryan.com/resources. Hey, Sophia, welcome. I saw your request a bit late, so sorry about that. How you doing today? Oh, there we go. Hey, Sophia, how you doing today?
Oh, hello, hi. I didn't realise my mic was off because I thought you were talking to me. Hi, everyone. It's the first time I've been in one of your chats in a while, Steve. I think last time I was in Tenerife. No, I was in La Gomera because you know how I like travelling. But, hi, everyone, again. So I think it's a really good topic you're doing today in terms of when to know when you need to set boundaries, because there's something which has popped up with me, Chrissy. And I find that boundaries are more easily, I think, to establish when it's with people who you might not be that close to or have a strong connection. And what I'm referring to is in terms of relationships. So, for example, if you look at relationships, for example, at work or in projects you do, and you don't have that same sort of emotional attachment as you might have with a friend or family, you could say, for example, here I am, this is where I fit, into this team, this group, this project. This is, the conduct I expect, or this is what my limits are, for example, maybe to do with times when you're working, etc. But then when it goes more onto the personal side of people who are close to you, so for example, with me, I'm a natural, type of person who's very good at listening. People might, put the labels, since we live in a world where they like to describe people with labels. I'm an empath, very friendly. And what I find sometimes is that, with closer relationships with people, sometimes, they could, be appreciative sometimes, or sometimes where the challenge can be is when people don't reciprocate. I'm not saying that when you do something, you should expect something identical in terms for the other person, but what I'm talking about is more of kind of like an energetic type of base.
Right.
I think a lot of people recognise this. For example, when let me use an example, a hypothetical one, where you might have a friend or acquaintance who might contact you and you think, okay, when this person contacts me, I've noticed most of the time it's out of the blue moon, or it's more to get support or help. And yes, we are human beings, it's good to get support for each other, but then we also have to remember about how we were supporting ourselves, like a mentally
and, physically too as well. And I found from my experience, going back to your question of when to set boundaries, is sometimes it could occur when things have gone a bit too far. Maybe I might have been given, a bit too much. I think, I get frustrated, I don't like this scenario, or it could happen, where a lot of us can recognise we feel like you might be going through a cycle in terms of a particular relationship. So it could be even with family too that will occur, where you think, okay, you might use the excuse, that's family. But at the end of the day, we're still human beings, and we need to have that balance. And it's good to be clear, in terms of what our boundaries are. And we don't have to say in a rude way, say, from X time, I don't want to hear from you, in terms of a personal time. But it could be more, in terms of, saying what you have to say. Maybe, for example, if you get someone who asks you to give you advice on a particular matter, and then maybe 2 months later you might come back to the same thing, and you get a bit frustrated. But it's like being clear. I had a friend once who said that, if I give an example of, people coming to you for advice or, to get some support or listen to you. I had one friend who once said that I say it once, I say it twice, but after the second time I don't repeat myself again. And what she was referring to is how you might get certain people who might come and share, a problem, or, download how their emotions are, and they're not willing to take the responsibility to go forward. Right. So my one might be a bit long-winded, but I think boundaries, yes, it can be harder when it comes to people who are more closely connected to you, because when you've got an emotional side to it, you feel, that's my sister, that's my friend, for example. So I think there you have to, be very clear. Right. With them, otherwise it keeps repeating over and over again.
Right. That makes sense. And I just want to acknowledge Jesse on the Clubhouse side. You'll be next up. But let me respond to Sophia for a moment. I think that's a very, very, very interesting point, that it's easier to set boundaries to people who are not as close to you than it is to people who are close to you. So let me ask you a question for you personally. Like, if you want to answer this, if you have someone close to you, how do you say no? How do you set that boundary? Is there something that you have to do to kind of like mentally and emotionally prepare yourself for that?
Okay, so I think that's a very good question, Steve, because the subject just actually occurred to me recently, talk about divine timing. But I think with it, is normally, in my experience, it normally happens when I get a bit tired about, especially if I'm seeing a pattern occurring. So I can get frustrated or think, why is this happening, again? Or, why is this hasn't changed? And one thing which I like to mention, a famous quote of Albert Einstein, the one to do definition of insanity, where he goes, hoping for just an outcome, and you do the same thing again. That's a very good point, because sometimes if something's not working, or you see the same pattern, then there needs to be some adjustment. When I remember that, I think, okay, that's more like the warning sign to say, okay, I need to approach this differently. And in answer to your question, I think how I approach it to them, and it can be hard sometimes if people are very close to you, and it might be to do with how your communication style is, that not necessarily your communication style, but it might be how, also the other party, how receptive they are. But I think it's just a case of, saying it in a clear and, polite way. Maybe have a conversation with them, or maybe we do live in an age where we use technology a lot, maybe send a text message. Or I think a nice way to do it is, say, okay, I'm here, I'm here at this distance, right, but I'm going to be there for you, but, but you have to respect that, I'm not going to be, interacting with this, with, exerting X amount of energy onto this. So I'm here for you, I care for you, I wish you the best, kind of thing. I'm always going to be here, but this is, almost like I have to put a limit on, how I'm going to do this. Right. Otherwise, it's very easy to get pulled back into the cycle, the pattern, and they don't appreciate it. But it can be very hard at first, I must say, to do that. But I think after a while, when people get used to, like a habit or situational approach, then I think they tend to understand it. But it's good to get communication on it. But it really depends who you're talking to as well, and how closely connected.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Sophia. That was a great point that you made because learning yourself, being honest with yourself, teaching yourself the three, the BBT, be honest with yourself, value yourself, teaching yourself. What Sophie just mentioned, sorry, I'm saying your name wrong. What she just mentioned is when it comes to setting boundaries with people who are close to you, like family or friends, knowing your limits, knowing what pushes the buttons, knowing what's going on, those things are super important. Now, before we get over to Jesse, Jesse's on the Clubhouse side. For all of you trying to request the live view on TikTok, I do that at the end. So when I'm done with the social app, we'll do that. Right now, we're live on Twitter Spaces and on Clubhouse. We're live on TikTok and we're live on some other video platforms as well. We're going over how and when to set boundaries. Now, I started off the space with giving some pointers for like the first 10 minutes or so. And then we just had a couple of people talk. We're about to have Jesse up and talk. Just to let you know what's coming up this week. Yesterday, we did creating opportunities in your industry. Today, we're doing how do you know when and how to set boundaries. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about, and I love this one, how does your self-language impact your mindset? That's a very good one because the language that we use with ourselves, that can definitely impact our mindset, our goals, the day-to-day decisions we make, like how we're moving forward. Thursday, we're going to be talking about how do you handle other people's energies. And then Friday is going to be more back to more of the financial business stuff, which is how can you expand your brand without burning out? So this week is a lot of energetic. Last week, for those of you who were here, it was more business-like. We talked about income opportunities, things like that. This week is more of like, how are you handling your energy? How do you handle other people's energy? That's kind of like the theme this week. The reason why I'm doing the building blocks this way is all of these components are important when it comes to moving forward and getting to a point to where you want to achieve certain goals. They don't have to just be financial goals. It can be financial goals, health goals, business goals, emotional goals, whatever. But let's hear from Jesse. Jesse's on the Clubhouse side. And then anyone else who wants to come up, just raise your hand on the Twitter. Oh, I see Prod Jen. So we're going to go Jesse and then we'll go to Prod Jen on the Twitter Spaces side. So let's jump over to Clubhouse. Hey, Jesse.
Hello, Steve.
How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah. So what do you think about the topic so far? Or any input or anything?
Yes. First of all, I must say that when I saw the notification and I saw the headline as the topic, I was like, oh my God, I have to join this conversation and then get to listen and learn a lot from it. I am a kind of person that I really pay attention to details, and I used to always take in my friends, all their requests. I used to attend to them. Sometimes they will come, okay, Jesse, help me look at this business plan, help me look at this pitch, help me look at this proposal. And I found myself, I was just attending to them, helping them, assisting them. And in the end, thank you, welcome, and the rest. At some point, I had to sit myself down and then think critically. I totally agree with the 3 points you mentioned. Be honest with yourself, value yourself, teach yourself. I discovered that I wasn't achieving my to-do list, like the things I set to do on a weekly basis and even on a monthly basis, because of the fact that I used to just want to be a very good guy, attend to everybody and all that. So I had to talk to myself that it can't continue like this. If it continues like this, income is going to go down, my time and my energy is going to just go down the drain. So I spoke to myself, and I also gave myself some advice on how to go about it. So in a situation whereby there's a request from a very close friend to do a particular task for him or her that I know that, okay, I won't be able to do it because of the things I have on my table, I would literally explain why I won't be able to assist them. Like I will tell them that, okay, I have this and this to do, and it's going to take me this long and that long to do it. If you can wait till this time, I'll be able to finish what I have to do and I'll attend to you. In most cases, they will just go away and, okay, I can't wait and all that. And most times they won't be offended, and I literally ask them, are you offended or are you upset? They'll be like, no, I understand that, okay, you are not chanced and all that. So That's my input, Steve.
Oh, wow. And so for that, when when you're asking your friends or whoever, are they upset after you set a boundary? Like, what do you do if they say yes? What's your next moment after that? Just out of care.
Okay, when they say yes, I'll just tell them, "Oh, I'm sorry for offending you," and that's all. I move on.
Right, right. It was interesting. It's interesting with that because like it's all about people's perception. And sometimes, like one of the things that I do, like if someone's who's close to me and I set a boundary and let's say they get offended, what I personally do is say, we just have to kind of agree to disagree. This is my view. This is why I view this way. And then I hear their view, and then that's just that. What else can we do? Because I feel like even if someone don't understand why you're setting a certain boundary, people who respect you will find a way to respect that boundary. Even if they get upset for a bit, they'll get past it. Those who are in your life and that loves you, they'll get past it. But sometimes setting boundaries can help other people's growth too, because if it's just a constant yes, 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 that can turn to a point of enabling. I remember us doing a room one time about enabling versus empowering. And enabling others can really sometimes have a negative benefit on both them and yourself. So I think this is a great point that you brought up. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Steve.
Oh, no problem. And we have Prod Jen on the Twitter side. Hey, Prod. Nick, how you doing?
Yeah, good, Steve. It's been a while. How you doing, mate?
Oh, all right. All right. Yeah, I'm coming to your neck of the woods next month. So definitely have to find a way to meet you.
Oh, let's go, man. Well, actually, next month I'm going to be in Australia.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So depending on dates, we may be passing each other in the air.
You're right. No, I feel you.
Dude, I've been loving the spaces this week, man.
Oh, thank you.
Really powerful, and you must have some skills getting all those different platforms at the same time.
Yeah, it's pretty. Well, it comes easy for me, but it's just
Well, practice, isn't it?
just My thing is this is as strange as this is. Hey, I just want to acknowledge Brenda. She's up next. My thing is my attitude and goal for doing these different topics. These are different thoughts that I've had. These are different things that I've written about. Some stuff has been released, some is not, but just different thoughts. And I found that it would be interesting because these are some topics that have personally helped me as well. So I feel like it would help others. And so when it comes to showing up, I just show up. Rather, I knew that these type of topics were going to be less popular initially, but I didn't care. You know what I mean? If it's not like, hey, come and sell yourself, come and sell a project or whatever, I knew that it was going to be like a little bit less. So I said, you know what? I'm not limiting. I'm going to take my own advice that I give to other people. Don't limit yourself to one platform. So on this, it's not just what we're talking about today, but it's the fact that this can be a podcast. This can be YouTube video. This is evergreen. Like it's unlimited. The amount of people that can hear this content of what we're talking about is unlimited. It's not limited to those who just show up today. And so when I'm doing things, I like to be efficient and do it to where, not to get off topic, but I've been doing spaces for a while now, a long time, at least a year now. And what I notice is a lot of people would do the spaces and that's it. It's so many beautiful moments that are lost. So many beautiful conversations that are just gone. And they're just captured in that moment. And these conversations, in my opinion, should be heard by unlimited people. Think about what we're having this conversation right now. Someone 6 months from now may hear this or watch it and like, wow, this has really helped me today. So something that you're saying or Brenda or Jesse or Fuzzy or whoever else comes up and contribute or what I've been saying or Sophia, it may impact. That may be the one thing that changes somebody's life. So this is important. I'm getting goosebumps right now.
It's one of those things, though, isn't it, where it's not sometimes as well, sometimes you can hear something once and it doesn't sink in. Sometimes it takes multiple times before it actually can penetrate to a deeper level, resonates more closely. And I feel like what you were saying as well, like these are kind of the building blocks for people, as opposed to have that ability, that strength within yourself, that resilience. These are the building blocks to allow you to run that marathon.
I love
You know
it.
what I mean?
Absolutely. Success is a marathon and not a sprint. Go ahead.
Well, I really can't, man. I feel it. Yeah, you do feel the exhaustion and the burnout as well. As part and parcel of it. I really appreciated what Sophia had to say earlier, where she's talking about different. Well, she touched on different personalities. And you were saying before about different people's perceptions, and these things, these are factors that shouldn't be glossed over quickly. The way in which different people communicate, the way in which different people's, the emotional state with which you interact with people, where they are at on their emotional journey. I find for myself, I identify ADHD, and that in itself brings in certain, not difficulties, but challenges, if you will. And I had a confrontation, I'll call it confrontation, today with a close friend, where they were offering criticism, or constructive or otherwise. And, I noticed within myself the tendency to revert to blaming myself for this. And I'll come back to the boundaries. The boundaries in that sort of situation is, sometimes we can intrinsically blame ourselves, and a boundary in that situation can help to identify where your growth is in that confrontation and where their growth is. What's your issue and what's their issue? And this comes back again to the perspectives and different personalities. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. 1000%. 1000%. And if I had to add something into the notes, I was being aware. And that sounds a little general, but when we zoom into being aware of ourselves, being aware of others, being aware of what you just said, which is, someone's perceptions, how someone's receiving or dealing with something may be different than how you're perceiving or dealing with something. And so really all of this is about navigating. Thank you so much, Nick. That was a really, did you have anything else before we go to Brenda?
No, man, but it's I'll just say this, it's been really helpful to be here. And, because I think that in all these situations, and what you were talking about before with the way in which people react to boundary settings, it can quite often be that the ego is the first thing that comes up as a defense mechanism. And I felt that with this friend when she mentioned, these certain things that I'd been doing in Twitter Spaces. And, they very much come back to ADHD where, I lose my train of thought, or I can ramble. And this ties into what you were just saying, where it's about awareness of it. And now that, so firstly, the first point is, now that I'm aware of it, it's something that I can monitor. And
Right.
secondly, allowing some time to not respond with the ego when you're having a confrontation around boundaries or anything really.
Wow.
Stop there.
I love what you just said because it goes back to one of the points in BBT, which is being honest with yourself and knowing your triggers. Like, and if you don't know your triggers, as you get triggered, try to, if you can, at some point, even if it's later that day, try to jot it down in a journal, like a trigger journal. I found myself doing this and I didn't even know I was doing it. I would just sometimes I'll just put my thoughts out, and if something bothered me or something, I'll jot it down. Like for me personally, if I feel like someone's attacking me, like personally, like, they're doing an attack, I have to take a breath for a moment. And what I do is I've learned to not confront that back in that moment. For the most part, it just really depends on the situation. I try to, instead of giving energy to the energy of confrontation, I attempt to redirect it to whatever the topic is at hand. Like we had some of you were here for this. We had where we were talking about a topic one day. And it's this person, she don't know me, I don't know her. And she came up and her first thing was, well, since I'm more advanced than you, I've been listening and I think you know what you're talking about. But the fact that she said, since I'm more advanced than you, that's kind of like, that was a trigger because it reminded me of my dad. It reminded me of how, as a kid, my dad would, he would just always try to put me on the defensive. And, I found out later it wasn't because he was doing it on purpose. It was because of what he went through as a child when he lost his dad and what he dealt with his stepdad and how he always felt like he had to prove himself. So it made me do personal soul searching and said, okay, why is that triggering me? Okay. And I did this before that space, but a while ago when I identified that it was because of childhood stuff. So now when something like that happens, I'm so secure in myself that it didn't bother me in that moment as much as it would have in the past. So I was able to just redirect, even though I was brutally interrupted, and said, okay, continuing my point, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? I totally didn't acknowledge it. I just ignored it and moved on. And, and later on, I think I mentioned something about let's be respectful in general. But I try to give space to where it doesn't seem like I'm attacking that person, even if they're attacking me. And I'm just sharing a personal experience. Like my boundary in that situation is I'm not going to I'm going to set boundaries to that energy. So it's not always about setting boundaries with people. It's also about, are we setting boundaries with certain energies that we don't want to embrace? And that's more of how I try to look at things. I look at it more of the energy instead of the person so that I don't take it so personal and say, okay, maybe she's feeling insecure. Maybe she's going through something where she needs to feel like she needs to validate herself. So I'm not taking it personal. I'm just moving on from it. And that's how I was able to move on in a split second. Like it was so quick. It was, Fired Up Freedom will be right back after these messages. Do you ever look for certain services or products and it's just hard to find and you want to know if someone else has used that before? Well, visit my resources page, steveryan.com/resources, steveryan.com/resources. Anyway, let's go over to Brenda. Hey, Brenda.
Good morning. And I'm sorry, I'm going to sort of say my piece and run. It's wedding week here, and we've got many petties lined up.
Yay, wedding! Congratulations.
So I love this topic because I learned, I won't say too late in life, but I learned later than I would have liked that you really teach people how to treat you. And it doesn't matter if it's somebody new in your life or an old acquaintance who comes back into your life or you're in a new job. You really do, by what you accept from people, it teaches them, how they can treat you. So, for example, if you're in a new job and the boss comes to you every time and says, "Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this?" and you're always saying yes, 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 yes. I mean, you're way overworked. You can't get it all done. You're going to miss deadlines. It's going to come back on you in some way, shape, or form. But it's just your energy. Like you're exhausted, or you, like say, you miss the deadlines or whatever. If you don't if you don't respectfully, and especially in a situation like this, but even just in general life, if you don't respectfully sort of say, look, I'm sorry, these are the last, 5 tasks you've given me, these are the deadlines I have, I'm only one person, then, you're just going to keep getting all this work thrown on top of you. If you were in a new relationship and, something simple, like every time you go out you go to a restaurant, your partner's ordering for you. And, you don't sort of say, I'm sorry, but today I'd rather have this or whatever. Then people will continue to they'll just keep doing what it is they're doing. And it's not that they're doing something maliciously. It's just that they sort of take it upon themselves as well. Just as you were saying earlier, Steve, if that person has always been a person to make decisions for people, because people in their lives maybe are not decision makers, well, then they will just automatically, fill that role in new relationships. So you really have to sort of stand for yourself. And I don't mean to do it in a combative way, but just sort of, make sure that your own needs are being met without, forcing that on somebody else necessarily, but also in a kind way, and making sure that that you're solid in that. That you know for yourself, what you will tolerate and what you won't, and that goes a long way in just sort of keeping the peace in your life and managing your own energy. And that's sort of what I had to say. Thanks very much.
Wow. It's so beautiful when all of you are coming up and giving your insights, because it gives another element. It's like we're building this recipe of different elements. And it's so like, wow. You made so many points. It was good. Thank you so much. It was something you said in the middle. I should have been writing it down because you made so many good points. What was it? I was like, that was so good. I mean, all it was good, but that was like really good. It was I know what it was. Intentional versus unintentional. Yes. So when you're saying, it reminded me of like, if you're saying yes, 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 and you're conditioning someone that your boundaries is a certain way, then they may be unintentionally, I don't want to use the word violate your boundaries. What's a softer word? They may be crossing your boundaries without even realizing it, without even meaning to, and like Brenda said, without even being malicious. I love that point. That was so incredible, because if we're knowing when to say no at times, then for people who are close to us, it's kind of back to who was up here earlier talking. I think it was Jesse. It's kind of back. Oh, and Sophia. When it comes to setting boundaries to people who are close to you, if you do that and let's say, no, I want to order this today, or I don't want to do that today, then as you set boundaries in the future, situation to situation, I believe that they will take it less personally, because they'll know that sometimes you're going to go along with it and sometimes you have your own thinking, but I just love that intention versus unintentional. That was incredible. If you could see me on video, I was just smiling when you were saying it. Go ahead, Brenda.
Yeah, and that's true, because most people, they don't know what your boundaries are, that they will definitely be crossing them in some way, shape, or form, intentionally or unintentionally. And usually, you're right, it's unintentional. And the other thing too is that even with your kids, if you have kids, they're going to push your buttons, right? They're going to see how far they can go. So you've got to set your boundaries, even with from people at a very young age, so that they know. Like, this is the line. Like, don't cross this line, because if you do, there are going to be repercussions, right? Because if they keep pushing them, you can let them continue to push them, then you're just going to end up with madness and mayhem. So I'm not going to say I'm talking from personal experience.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. We're about to wrap up, so if there's any, we may have time for one more person just to give space to that. If anybody else want to come up as well, if not, that's good. We'll be good to go as well.
Yeah, it's just to interrupt. It was a good one, and I like what the other speakers at Gemma who was speaking before. Sorry, I apologise. Just trying to remember what your name was because I know you're on another childhood space. It's quite a good point she made about treat people. You know, people have to be aware that you want to be treated. You have to kind of like set the tone of how people treat you, and by setting certain behaviours. For example, I use behaviours deliberately because I think this is a key point which needs to be, brought up to as well. Because when we talk about boundaries, we could talk about, for example, like the one she used example before about how when you go to a restaurant with your partner, for example, they keep ordering, food all the time for you, although you don't give an option, and they might justify and say, oh, it's because I find that you're indecisive, or I've had this experience, etc., from other people. No, this is probably a bad example to use, but what I want to talk about in terms of bring up the point about behaviour is sometimes what happens is you get into scenarios where, and you did mention this early on, Steve, about how not to take personally, how people behave sometimes, and I know where you go there. You've probably described the scenarios where people, as human beings, we're emotional. Sometimes we can project stuff out, which is more to do with us than the other person. So say, for example, if I'm driving and someone cut me off and then I go to meet it, I might put me in a bad mood and I might be a bit short with someone. But the point I want to make here is there's another subtopic here, is that we should never, whatever happens to a person shouldn't justify them behaving badly towards you. So just because they're having a bad day, or, I'm just using that as a good example, it doesn't justify them, behaving a certain way. And the reason why I bring this up about that behaviour, and just what I call bad behaviour, as an example, is because sometimes I see that very often where people might make excuses, say, oh, they were projecting out their stuff on you, and I've seen it happen lots and lots of times. And this is where you get this issue to do with boundaries, and why you need it is when someone does this repeated pattern over and over again, just because they're having a bad day or they're going through different sorts of issues. Because at the end of the day, we all have different challenges sometimes. And yes, we might have different ways of dealing or managing our stress, but it doesn't, it's not a good excuse to behave certain ways which are not very kind to other people just because we're having a bad day. So that's something which I wanted to put in as an additional subplot to this in terms of boundaries, is that, we also have to respect people. So that's like, extension of boundary. And that's the addendum, as I say, I wanted to add, and it kind of popped into my mind while I was listening to the other user.
Yeah, Brenda, yeah. That's awesome. And y'all have been getting some hundreds and stuff from some of the live viewers on the comments. So you've definitely been making an impact to people that you can't even see in the whatever platform you're on. So this is awesome. And lastly, Raptor Rooster just came up. I want to give a moment for you, and then we'll wrap up here.
I appreciate it, Steve. And, for me today, this subject and this topic is super important. And I myself have to learn to set some boundaries and find new ways to deal with what's going on in my life. And I wanted to remind everybody that no matter how scared you are, find what you want and set those boundaries, and be damned the rest of them. Because in the end, it's you, and do what's going to make you happy. And I really appreciate you bringing these topics, Steve. Like you were saying earlier, you knew they weren't going to be real popular right off the bat, like the chill spaces and nonsense, but I think the value here is far greater than anything someone could buy with some cryptocurrency, this code on a computer. So thank you, sir. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Really appreciate you. We enjoyed hearing the roosters in the basketball.
They always going, man. They never stop. They're always talking.
Well, you have to have roosters because that's part of your name, the Raptor Rooster. So that goes right in line with your profile name. That's cool.
100%.
That reminds me of my grandma. She had a farm, and I remember when I would go spend the night there, the roosters would crack all at the same time every day. I'm like, how do they know how to? It's like they have this internal clock or something. You know, just all the time.
They actually, so fun fact for you today, Steve. So chickens are capable of sensing wavelengths such as UV through their penile gland in their brain. They actually don't even have to see to know if it's actually light outside. So even the slightest little UV rays getting into where they are, they know even before we do.
Wow. That is so awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. I've put up the room for tomorrow on Clubhouse. It's also on Twitter Spaces. And you can always go and see what other topics you like or whatever. Feel free to come and contribute. This was a great conversation today. Really, really, really enjoyed it. Running from myself at times I can't describe the words I try. The fear